Welcome to the Better Business Podcast. I'm your host, Austin Zelan. Join me week after week as I interview high-level entrepreneurs on their journey to success, both in business and personal development. Each week presents new stories to learn from and new ideas on how to run a better business. Stay updated with all the guests we'll have by subscribing to this podcast. Welcome to Better Business with Austin Zelan. Today we have our special guest, Sean Kelly. Very excited to have him, and he has his own viral podcast. So I'm sure we have a lot to talk about here, especially in the business side of things. You might know him from his podcast, but maybe you don't know the numbers that he's been able to generate in the business world through affiliate marketing and social media agencies and all that stuff. So I'm really excited to dive in here. So Sean, thank you so much for joining me. And if you could just give the audience like an overview of your journey in entrepreneurship and kind of where you started and how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah, I got a really interesting journey, and to be able to accomplish some of these numbers at a young age, make it all, lose it all, it's really interesting. But
how old are you, by the way?
I just turned 27 yesterday.
Oh, awesome. Happy birthday.
So that's a new number. And basically I started in college and was broke. I grew up middle class, but my parents didn't give me that many handouts actually. And so yeah, I was broke in college, started off in e-commerce. Drop shipping was hot back then, really hot. That's how I made my first 6 figures selling jerseys. And then from there, invested that money into masterminds, which was one of the best investments I ever made. Saw the potential of what else is out there. E-commerce is cool, but the margins are super thin, right? So you could be doing huge revenue numbers in e-commerce, but only make 6 figures. And that was basically my case. So I looked to transition from there. The pandemic started shortly after. So I started doing B2B. So I started selling masks to hospitals, to governments. I had no experience at all, learning this all on the fly, but was able to rack up $15 million in sales there.
Wow. And
yeah, from there, reinvested some more money into stocks, into crypto, into Forex, lost all of it. That's a whole nother story. I lost over $10 million and had to start from ground zero recently. And yeah, so 2 years ago, I started a marketing agency and that got acquired in 6 months. It was in the crypto space. So we were killing it. Profit margins were super high, got acquired in 6 months. And then from there, started a podcast about 3 months later. We're about a year into that now.
Awesome. Yeah. So are you enjoying that more than the marketing agency?
It's my favorite business I've ever had. And even though I'm not making as much as other businesses I've been part of, I just feel so fulfilled, dude.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, it's a great thing. And I've really been enjoying the podcast as well. Okay. And so that transition from industry to industry to industry, what do you feel like motivated you to make those jumps? Was it just kind of like an opportunity that came your way? Did you seek out the opportunities, or how did you come about all those?
I'd say opportunity, but you got to be very careful, right? Because they say when you do too many things at once, it's actually a bad thing. And that's definitely the case. I've lost tons of money, tons of investments, just being careless and trying to diversify too quick.
Yeah.
So now I kind of focus on 1 or 2 things at a time. But if I do see a better opportunity, and I run some numbers and I talk to some people and they say good things, then I'll jump on it. But with the podcast, I see that more evergreen. I see that lasting for many, many years. It'll probably be my longest business ever just because it's so fresh. There's always new guests, exciting people to talk to.
Yeah, definitely. And it's one of those things where it's not really like a phase. It seems like everybody's moving more towards that long form content podcast. They love the video. They love seeing their favorite speakers, and it's accessible anywhere. You could listen to it at home, in the gym, wherever. And so it is definitely a long-term play. And so you talked about kind of vetting these opportunities when they come your way.
Yeah.
And, I'm presented with a lot of opportunities. I'm sure you have even more than I have. And it's just like, wow, like all these things sound great, but which one should I actually do? So do you have a system or a process that you've developed to kind of vet these opportunities one by one?
Now I do. Before it was terrible. It was, like I said, I've lost over $10 million in investments. And that's just because I had no one like to check it. And now I hired this guy named Jim Do. He's a wealth advisor. He saves a ton of money on taxes. He vets all investment opportunities. So they handle all of that. I don't even do anything other than wire money these days, which is great. I highly recommend people look into that if they're at that level. But when you're just starting out, it's tough. I would say focus more on just reinvesting in the business until you have maybe 6-7 figures, and then look at other investments.
Mm-hmm. And what has been your favorite industry to invest in?
I mean, I made the most in crypto, even though I've lost a lot in crypto, but I think you can't make money that fast in any other industry, in my opinion.
Is there anything specific in crypto, like NFT projects or anything like that you like?
Yeah, I did well with NFTs. I launched my own $2.4 million in 18 minutes. It was a crazy, life-changing moment. Yeah, I've had a lot of just really interesting ways of making money. But I lost most of that, honestly, reinvesting it back in NFTs. A lot of NFTs crashed
Yeah.
99%. But crypto, just the top 5 coins. I'm more safe these days. When I was in my younger 20s, I was buying altcoins and all these random meme coins.
You have any
But
Shiba?
I actually missed that one. Funny
Uh,
story though, my friend could have made 2 billion off that one, but
wow.
he sold it for I think like $500,000. But if he held it, $2 billion.
Wow. That's crazy.
Crazy.
Imagine making 2 billion off crypto.
Someone's done it, man. There's people
Yeah.
that make, 9 figures off those meme coins, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
too risky for me.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's like a moonshot opportunity that you might or might not get. So, yeah, definitely. So, kind of touching more on that crypto subject, do you think that NFTs are here to stay, or do you think this crash is like the end of NFTs? Because I know there's like two schools of thought there. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
this is the end of NFTs, not going anywhere. And then there's some people who are just waiting for crypto to go back up and then NFTs to follow, which totally plausible, I think.
Yeah, it'll be similar to crypto where the top 5, 10 projects will be here. And I
Yeah.
think there'll be some use cases for NFTs and where you can use them physically somehow, whether it's sporting arenas, concerts, or something. But in
Yeah.
terms of the ones right now, Pudgy Penguins is doing really well. Bored Apes is doing decent.
Hmm.
But you got to be really selective these days.
Yeah. So, do you have any bored apes?
I have a mutant ape.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, yeah. Cool, man. So, as far as entrepreneurship goes in general, not related to crypto or any of your businesses, what's your favorite part about being an entrepreneur? Is it time freedom? What exactly is it that attracted you?
There's a lot of pros. There's also a lot of cons. I mean, the mental health thing really got to me at first. So I've had to train my mental resilience. Now I don't get anxiety, but I used to get anxiety attacks all the time, which is actually really common with entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
Most of them won't admit that. So that's probably the dark side. But the good side, yeah, I think the time and location freedom, man, because I could work wherever I want, whenever I want. I could go to Europe for 6 months. My business won't be affected because I have 6 months of podcasts in the pipeline.
Yeah.
So I'm good till July. I cannot film another podcast right now and still release one a day.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, so do you feel like you said, you can be geographically anywhere. Do you feel that the environment that you're in affects you? Like, is there a reason that you live in Vegas as opposed to somewhere else?
Yeah, that's huge. Highly recommend people watching this if they're in a small town or they feel like they're kind of isolated. I grew up in New Jersey, so
Mhm.
not a lot of entrepreneurs there. A lot
Yeah.
of families are there. It's a state for raising families, in my opinion. So coming to Vegas was a big decision for me, man. Because there's conferences every day here, dude. There's like 5 a week. There's so many events. UFC's out here. Just the networking's phenomenal. I think Vegas is the best move I've ever made.
And did you move here specifically for the podcast?
It wasn't planned, dude. So I went to LA thinking that was going to be it, because I cared a lot about social media back then. This was right before the pandemic started. So I thought business would be good there. It was terrible, man. I hated it. Lasted 5 months and drove to Vegas, not even planned. I ended my lease early and drove here, stayed at the MGM for a month looking for a house. But it was honestly, it worked out, things happen for a reason.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely. Okay. So, somebody might be watching this and they're like, okay, I want to be in an environment like that. Is it worth maybe trying out a city first as opposed to moving there fully? Or do you think that you should just make a decision based on economics and numbers and do some research and then you just commit to it and you make it work?
Yeah.
Like, because I mean, you could do it both ways. You could try out a city for a month, like you said, you lived at MGM for a month. You could go live in Miami for a month and then kind of decide. Or do you find that if you have a very specific advantage, like here, you have great networking of events, it's kind of like a place of confluence for people.
Mhm.
That's a huge advantage for your business. So you just make that decision based on something that's going to drive your business.
I would definitely say at least visit first, right? Because if you're moving
Yeah.
across the country without even staying there for a day, that's super risky. What if you don't like the place or the people there? West Coast versus East Coast, there's that debate about the people, right? West
Yeah.
Coast people are more relaxed. East Coast is more direct and blunt. I'm from the East Coast. So
Yeah.
it took some time getting adjusted to the people here, but I found my crowd. I found my pocket. There's some really good entrepreneurs out here. Alex Hormozy, Graham Stephan. There's so many different, Ryan Pineda. So there's
Yeah.
a lot of good groups you can join here.
Awesome. Awesome. So do you specifically find ways to surround yourself with people like that? Or do you leverage like your podcast or your business ventures in order to connect with them?
Yeah, I'm always going to masterminds, conferences, and I'm always going with the intention of providing value, right? So
Yeah.
these days it's, hey, I'll let you come on the podcast, spread whatever message you want. People find that valuable, right? Because all the eyeballs. But back then it was different. It was when I was selling jerseys, it was like, let me give you a free jersey. It could be as simple as that. Even
Yeah.
though it's like a $50 jersey, it could make someone's day. And no
Yeah.
one was offering that product at the time. So you got to figure out what ways you can help the person in and just give value.
Hmm. Yeah, that's something that's very important. It's like going to these networking events because I mean, when you go to an event and people are networking just to sell you something, you can feel it. You
Yeah.
know, it's like it's obvious. Like you just get used to what that looks like and what it sounds like, and so it kind of closes doors. You know, and so I always teach people to lead with value, like you said. You're there to provide value and not to expect anything back. And if you can do that effectively, it's naturally going to bring in the network and the business and everything into your life. So definitely agree with you on that. Now, when it comes to building business partnerships, do you like to partner with people on businesses or do you just like to do it on your own?
I'd say both. I know we were talking about ERC earlier, and I
Yeah.
couldn't have done that without the right partners, right?
Yeah.
So we brought in over $1 billion in refunds to clients, to business owners.
Yeah.
And if I did that alone, would have came nowhere close to that number. Maybe 10 million. But
Wow.
because of all the affiliates I had and the partners I had,
Hmm.
$1 billion in 2 years.
So you think partnerships like literally 100 extra business?
Yeah, you got to do
That's
them right.
crazy.
I mean, and I've had tons of terrible partnerships, right?
Yeah.
Partnerships are not easy like everyone makes it seem
Oh, for
because
sure. Yeah.
especially the 50-50 ones with me have almost never worked out
Yeah.
because I just find myself out working. But now I lay clear intentions beforehand. I just started a new business with a couple people and I was like, everyone write down what they're going to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, let's set the expectations from day one
Exactly.
because it's different for everyone. You know, my work ethic is insane. You know, I'm working 15 hours a day and that's not normal for certain people.
Yeah. And also, if they don't do those things, what happens? Do we just take back the equity? Like, are you buying yourself out? Like, what exactly happens in that situation? Because sometimes you can write down responsibilities and then people aren't quite meeting certain, criteria. And it's just like, well, it's not really going to work anymore.
Right.
And sometimes, you do it with friends and you're partnering with friends. So you have to have a clear separation between this is business. If you're not meeting these responsibilities, that's just business,
Yeah.
does not affect our friendship. Our friendship is over here, and you keep those as separate as possible. I think that's the only way you can make it work.
It's tricky working with friends, man. I've
Yeah,
lost a lot of friendships,
yeah,
but
yeah,
that makes sense. I need to start doing that.
yeah, definitely. So, now back to the ERC. You did $1 billion in ERC credit.
Yep.
That's crazy. Tell
Yeah.
us the story.
Yeah. So there was this company, and they were presenting the offer to me for months. And I was like, no way this is true. You're gonna give people, what was it, $20,000 per employee or something crazy, and they don't have to pay it back. Right. It was such a good offer. I was like, I pushed it off for months. And looking back at it, I would have made even more. But you know, you got to do your due diligence. When stuff sounds too good to be true, it usually is. And I just one day I went all in. I accepted it. I brought in a few big affiliates and they started going to work. And when I received the first check, you know, I knew it was real. So I think we had thousands of affiliates under us. And now we're doing that with self-employed tax credit too.
So how does that model work? The ERC model, like you go into a business, you're cold calling businesses. Like, how can you explain that process for me?
Yeah, everyone's different. So for me, I just put as many affiliates under me as possible. And those affiliates were in charge of running their own ads, cold calling. Some people had different methods.
Okay.
And then you would get the business owner a refund and it'd be X amount of dollars. And then the accounting company that I was partnered with, an affiliate under, would give you a commission basically.
Okay, gotcha. And so why would these affiliates want to work under you? Why not just do exactly what you did and collect the full commission?
They probably could, but because I was so, I brought so much volume, they were giving me better rates. So I think if they went on their own, they would have actually made less.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that totally makes sense. I mean, it's kind of a volume game at that point.
Yeah.
So, with that, how did you like how many affiliates did you have, by the way?
It was over 1,000, but honestly, the number, you shouldn't aim for the number. 80% of our sales came from 20% of people. So
Yeah.
I started focusing more on quality than quantity.
Okay. So you have 1,000 affiliates under you. How did you even manage a team of 1,000 people?
Just the right partners, man. So my job was
Yeah.
awesome. I brought the affiliates and didn't do shit after that. I had a
Okay.
team that managed all of them.
Okay. And so it's kind of like a sales trainer that was just motivating them and teaching them how to sell. And like, it's essentially just salespeople, right?
Basically, yeah. I think they up on weekly Zooms or something. But yeah, my job, we laid out the expectations. I'm just going to bring people because that's my skill. I'm the
Yeah.
master networker and
Yeah.
connector. I'm
Okay.
similar to Dan Fleyshman in that regard. And with the podcast, I'm able to connect so many people. I made a group chat of all my previous podcast guests,
Yeah.
and there's billionaires in there, there's celebrities in there, and we just provide value. No one's allowed to pitch. All we do is connect and provide value to each other. And
Yeah.
that's the type of community I want to be part of.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. I bet it's super valuable for them to be able to connect with each other. as a podcast guest. Cool. So now what's this new program you're talking about? SETC, you said?
Yeah, self-employed tax credit. So ERC is
Okay.
coming to an end.
Yeah.
So this is sort of the next thing the government's pushing. So if you were a self-employed person during COVID and you got COVID, you're entitled to a refund.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And it's like a partial refund of your whatever you paid in tax?
Yeah, it's based off your income. I think you get up to 20,000 or something. But yeah, anyone watching this, if you're an entrepreneur, definitely claim that.
Yeah. So how can they reach out to you for that?
Just DM me or email, whatever works. We'll link it in the video.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Yeah. So these credits, it's really the government trying to kind of grow the economy a little bit, give people some money back so they can stimulate it and get it back up to where it was, years ago.
Mhm.
And so they want to make that recovery. And it's interesting. I saw a chart the other day of like if you look at the Dow or like the S&P 500, it looks like it's at record highs, right? And it is, but it's really being propped up by like AI stocks. It's kind of crazy because everything else is kind of like on a downtrend, and then
Nvidia
AI is
saving
like,
it.
and AI is just like way up, in the sky, and so it like balances out, and it looks good in general. But if you really start looking at the different sectors, it's maybe not so hot. So, what are your investment plays going into like this year, next year? Do you have anything on your radar that you maybe like an industry you want to invest in? Are you part of any AI investments, anything like that?
I'm not. I get pitched them all the time.
Yeah.
I just don't know if AI, like, it's definitely overhyped. I mean, there's certain companies that are killing it. Don't get me wrong, but it feels like a Web3 fad almost.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Web3, everyone thought that was the future.
Yeah.
Everyone thought the metaverse was the future.
So you don't think metaverse is the future?
I think everyone was too early. They were saying this years ago, and obviously it's going to play a huge role. I know Apple and Meta just came out with their new goggles, and they look pretty cool.
Yeah.
But people invested so early, and no one's really seen a return on it. So it's more of a long investment, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when you have like this level of investment, it's kind of like people who were talking about the internet before the internet was the internet. And so it's like you don't even realize maybe how much change it's going to bring or how it's going to affect the economy and the marketplace until it actually happens. But because I think it's such a huge, like, it's like a whole platform that's happening. And maybe it's going to be the next internet or like at that scale, everybody uses the internet. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know. I think you're right. People did start talking about it too early. So maybe in the future it's going to be more of a thing, but it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah. I mean, I bought the Quest personally, and the graphics were terrible. It hurt my head, honestly, but we'll see.
Yeah.
It was the first model, so.
Yeah. Have you tried the Apple goggles?
No, I've seen clips, though. It looks sick.
Yeah.
I will
it
say it
pretty
looks
cool.
like it's improved from the Quest.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like they've been working on it for a while though. And yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But anyways, so one thing that I want to talk about is leveraging social media and like podcasting to grow your business.
Yeah.
Have you seen that to be like your main source of leads and stuff like that? Or do you run ads?
Yeah, the podcast, I'm pretty open with my numbers. The first year we did $500,000. This year we'll do about 2.5. So it's
And
good.
what are you making the money off? Like sponsorships or?
Sponsors and the views mainly from the AdSense. So Instagram's monetized now, TikTok, I don't know. Yeah, Twitter and YouTube. So those bring in money. And then sponsors are bringing in good money. And then I'm not even counting the affiliate stuff like the ERC and the SETC, but a lot of leads do come from the podcast for that.
Yeah.
So the pod actually brings in probably more than that, but it's pretty good money. But the main money is the networking. I just got to figure out how to, because I'm only a year and I got to figure out how to monetize the guests more.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you could probably get people to like pay to be on it or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So have you been just focused on the podcast and then having that on all your platforms, or do you use any other type of social media marketing?
It's mainly the pod these days. I mean, it's the easiest way to make content, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Instead of doing like a whole scripted video like by yourself. Podcast, you just film this for an hour, you got 10 clips.
Yeah.
And I'm cool with that. I post 3 times a day. So
yeah. And you have a whole team managing your social media?
yeah, I overpay my editors. That's one thing people cheap out on, which I highly recommend you don't.
Yeah.
Because people can buy clips for $5 in India or Pakistan. I pay my editors $25K a month because I want the highest quality clips. I want them to be able to make a living, and I want to be able to grow with them together. The same people I hired from day one, I'm with right now.
Yeah. Awesome. And so is that like an agency that you're using, or is it like people that you hired internally?
Yeah, it's like a team. There's a team of 5, and then another guy in Cali named Max Farzine, who's a beast, man. He's gotten me hundreds of millions of views.
Wow. Awesome. So if somebody's watching this and they have a business, but maybe they don't have a social media presence, what would you say are some of the best things that they can do to start building that brand online?
First, and I'll say this from experience because I started a podcast 5 years ago, total fail. So first, I wouldn't focus on the social media presence. I would focus about what value you're going to be able to provide.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to be successful in whatever field you're trying to teach first, and that will take years. And then once you're there, start going on other shows and get clips, and then maybe even start your own show. I'd say that's the easiest way to make content right now.
hmm So basically, get good at something, start going as a guest on other shows, seeing how that content is playing out. And then from there, you could consider starting your own show and then doing it with other guests as well.
Yeah, and if you're gonna start your own, make sure you study the top shows. So I did that for years before I started my second one up again,
Okay.
and it helped me a lot just in terms of asking the right questions, what type of guest to have on, and all that.
Yeah. So the podcast thing, I mean, it's kind of a non-traditional business for a lot of people, and it doesn't look like a normal brick and mortar business or anything like that. But do you have like a full team helping you? Do you have certain KPIs that you track maybe?
Yeah.
Like how do you run it? Do you run it as a business?
Yeah, it's pretty lean. It is a business though. My fiance Ariel helps with the creative direction. She made all my logos, all that stuff, all the branding, the cartoon you see.
hmm
I just film. I have AI to help me with the guest research. There's
Yeah.
a couple good ones on Google Chrome. I forget the name, but it basically summarizes all their previous podcast interviews. And then
Interesting.
you could take some points there. I'll
Cool.
comb through their Twitter because I feel like people are most honest on their Twitter. And then sometimes I'll go through their Instagram.
Nice.
But Twitter, you could pull some really good stuff, man.
Wow.
So once they let it tweet, it's there.
Yeah.
And it's raw. I feel like Instagram's so planned. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's very curated content. That's really cool. You have a whole strategy behind this. You scrape online, see all their previous podcast interviews and what they talked about, and then you find the real them on Twitter.
Mhm.
And it's like, all right, this guess.
Yeah. I
So-
know if it's going to be a good episode before I start filming with them, actually.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, by based off my research.
Well, you've probably done so many that you could just tell.
Yeah, I've done 500. I could tell within the first couple minutes of the episode how many views it's going to get, ballpark, and all that at this point.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, you're good at what you do.
Just repetitions, man. People think it's hard. I mean, it is
Yeah.
hard. My first 10 episodes were complete trash, but just keep it going.
Yeah, definitely. So who helps you with that research? Is it just you on your own or you have somebody doing that?
I'll use AI. Sometimes their PR team will send some talking points, but
Yeah.
I actually like them not to see the questions. Sometimes they do ask, but it's better if it's more raw, in my opinion.
Yeah, more like a genuine conversation.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah. Cool. Well, one other thing that I wanted to talk about is do you have like consultants or coaches that help you grow your businesses?
Yeah, I would say I have mentors, not directly like I'm paying them, but
Mhm.
just people on YouTube that I watch. And then I have people that I could text just for advice, 9-figure CEOs and whatnot, but they're
Yeah.
not like public people.
So do you think that's the route to go for most people if they're wanting to grow their business?
I mean, yeah, you could pay or you can just find value to provide the person and they can mentor you in exchange, whatever route goes. But it'll definitely save you time, man. Because my first 3 years, I didn't really have anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just honestly working on really minuscule tasks like
Mhm.
customer service, graphic design, just wasting time.
Yeah. So like those people, they can help you identify the things that you really should be working on because not everything is like it's not leveraged. Some
Yep.
things are just like one-to-one leverage. You do this, you get this, and then some things is like, okay, if I do this, I'm going to get all this result out of this one thing that I'm doing. Kind of like the podcast.
Yep.
You're doing that and you're getting a massive result out of it. And I'll never forget in college, one of my professors, was economics professor, he talked about what technology is. And it like really stuck in my head because he said that technology is essentially putting in the same input, but getting way more output out of that same thing. So technology has allowed us to do that. And you don't see that if you look back in history where they didn't have technology, they didn't see this exponential growth. They didn't
Mhm.
see this potential, or they didn't see businesses just like skyrocket overnight. And we can only do that with technology for the most part, because it gives us that piece of leverage.
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, it's just finding ways to leverage your business beyond capital. Of
Yeah.
course, everybody, when you say leverage, they think about capital. They're like, oh, I'm going to go get a loan from the bank. Well,
Mhm.
that's one way, but there's also human leverage. AI, I think that's human resource leverage.
Yeah.
You're leveraging AI to do the work of 1,000 people with one person managing it.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's definitely a cool thing. And I see social media as a leverage piece as well. It's one of those things that can make or break a business. And if you leverage it correctly, it can help you grow it. So cool. Well, I think that, there's some people that are watching this that who potentially would want to run an affiliate marketing structure like you have.
Yeah.
What are some like pros and cons to that? What are some things that you learned that they could take away and apply to that?
Yeah, affiliate marketing's great. If you have a big, funnel, the margins are going to be thin. So even though I said that crazy number of a billion, you would
Yeah.
assume I made a ton of money. I actually didn't. So I only made a couple million. But you're able to scale super quick if you
Hmm.
have that model and not much work, right?
Yeah.
So when I did that revenue, I maybe worked a couple hours a week, nothing crazy.
Yeah.
But you meet a lot of good people. The networking's great. There's a lot of MLM guys, even though that industry gets a ton of hate.
Yeah.
Really good networking. You can learn a lot about psychology and sales from those guys.
Yeah.
So I think it's like a side thing. I wouldn't have it as my main thing. If that
Hmm.
makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know some people they like having some sort of side gig that's MLM. Like even there's that real estate brokerage EXP.
Yeah.
They're doing the MLM side of it with them signing up agents, and that's why they've grown so fast. And I think it's cool if you do it correctly, because you also don't want to be like a big pyramid schemer.
Right. Yeah. There's a fine line with those.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So now, as far as like creating the payout structures for that
Yeah.
team, like if I wanted to build an affiliate structure in my company, I probably wouldn't really know where to start. I'd probably research MLM companies, the percentages they pay people, and like that whole payout structure, and make sure the economics work. How did you design that in your business? Did you model
Yeah.
it after something, or you just like kind of did the math? Or
I'd love to say I did. I honestly just did it on the fly. I gave the best people literally almost all the profit, if we're being honest, to just incentivize them because I didn't want our competition giving them better deals because they'll
Mm,
leave. People in the
yeah,
affiliate space will leave if they get a better offer. So you got to really keep them incentivized. Some deals I was barely making anything, but it's good to help people make money. It's a powerful thing, man. It's
hmm,
it's really a powerful skill. If you can help people make money, I mean, you're gonna make money with that skill. You know what I mean?
yeah, definitely. It is a huge, huge benefit. Have you done anything to build loyalty in your team? Like you want them to stay. Did
Yeah.
you do anything special for them? Like, I don't know, like, not like a pizza Friday, but
Yeah, yeah.
did you do anything like that to create loyalty within your team?
Yeah, I saw what Russell Brunson did with ClickFunnels with the awards. So we we
Yeah.
we we were thinking about that. It seems like a lot of work, but honestly, no, that's something I need to improve on.
Yeah. So do you still have that whole structure?
Yeah, so with SETC, we've transferred the whole team. We just hit 9 figures in that one. So
Awesome.
we might
Congratulations.
do a billion with that. We're looking at some other offers too.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I mean, that's a big leverage piece for you. If you have that team, you could just kind of give them a new offer. It's like, okay, now we're doing this, now we're doing this. And it's really impressive what you built there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, there's guys that have made millions, some of them tens of millions. So it's super cool.
Yeah. Now, have you ever considered like selling equity of your company to somebody? That's kind of like this new
Yeah.
thing that is really fascinating to me. Is like I want to buy equity in different companies based on their model, based on their profitability, and based on the operator. So, have you ever considered something like that, or have you bought into somebody else's company?
I have sold my marketing agency outright.
One hundred percent.
That was a learning lesson though, because I sold for majority stock, which was a huge mistake. Company never went public.
Yeah.
So I would never do that again. A lot of companies, want to pay for companies in stock. And you
Hmm.
think it sounds good on paper. You're like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I'm making X amount of money.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
really not.
Yeah.
Also, it's not liquid usually. You got to wait X amount of years.
Yeah. Before you can
So I
liquidate.
would never do that again. But with the podcast, I'm building it to be able to be sold. So that is my goal right now. I would only take on money if it was strategic because I don't need money. It's cash flowing heavy right now. It would have to be a very strategic partner that could bring A-list celebrities or something of value to the show.
Hmm.
But in 3 to 5 years, if I hit certain numbers, I know we'll be able to sell it for 50 million, maybe $100 million. My friend just sold his show for 15 million, and I'm already on pace to like eclipse his numbers. So
Yeah. Awesome. That's really cool. So, when you say built to sell, maybe somebody doesn't know what that means. What are
yeah,
you doing exactly to build it to sell?
really good books, really good IP. So it's important you don't have your name in the show. Like you did it right with Austin Zelan. I did the same thing with my show. Some people name their show the Austin Zelan Show,
Yeah.
and then you can't sell it because it's your personal brand.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But now you
You're the
can have,
dancing bear.
yeah, you can have another co-host or
Yeah.
something. So yeah, that was important, and just really good books. Make sure the profit and the revenue increases every year, and the downloads increase as well.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. And so if it's okay to share, are there certain numbers that you're looking to hit before you sell?
I would say once we hit, if we can hit $10 million in revenue, I would say it can be sold for 50 to 100 million because the profit margins are really high.
Yeah.
The downloads are going up every single month. The guests are getting bigger and bigger.
Mhm.
I just have to incorporate some sort of recurring revenue model into the business to hit that.
Yeah.
So once I figure that piece out, we'll be good.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. I love that. Yeah, that's a very strategic way to build it. I never even considered podcast as like its own business that you could just exit
Yeah.
out of.
Rogan
But
sold for 250 again
yeah.
last week. And there's a show called Smartless that just sold to SiriusXM for 100 million 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's a huge leverage piece. You know, you have an audience that loves watching and listening and all that stuff, and so they're loyal, you know, to a certain extent, I think, and it's like a marketing play. You
Yeah.
know, you use that to promote whatever else you have. So that's cool. Now, if somebody's watching this and they want to run a better business, what kind of business advice could you give them? Like, out of all your experiences that you have, it's a pretty wide range of different things. Like, what are things like if you could tell your 20-year-old self, what are three things you'd tell them?
When I look back at all the success I've had, the number one thing that was in every single business was timing. So just being there at the right time. Because if there's certain businesses I did that were successful, so if I started them a year or two later, they actually wouldn't have been successful.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me is super important. The networking slash mentorship side, crucial. I tried to do everything on my own at first, and you think you know it all, but you really don't, man. So surrounding yourself with people doing, I'd say 3 to 10x better than you, super important. And it gets harder and harder as you scale. But now I'm hanging around 9-figure guys, and I need to do that to keep me motivated because it's easy to get comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Very easy to get comfortable after you've made some money. And the third thing is the mental side. Just really keep that in mind. Almost every entrepreneur I know has gone through some really dark mental journeys. So just really keep that in the back of your head that it's not an easy route to go into entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so each one of these things. So the first one's timing, very, very important. I totally agree with you. If you have the best idea in the world, but you launch it at the wrong time, it's just not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so how can we gauge timing and see if it's right?
Yeah, I guess it's case by case. But with crypto, obviously, just got in early, so you need conviction. You need to be talking to the right people in the industry.
Yeah.
You're not going to find it out online. You need to be going to in-person events, talk to people, and spend some money, go to masterminds, talk to really smart people that have been in multiple industries, just get their feedback. But it's hard. I mean, there's timings where I messed up, so it's not like a surefire answer to be there early.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes you get in on something early. Like a lot of people got in early on NFTs even, and now they're down.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's also timing, but it's also, emotions, right? Because they get emotionally tied to these investments and they don't want to let go.
Yeah. I find that once things start going mainstream, like if they're talking about it on CNN, I don't want to be part of that investment anymore.
Facts.
That's way too late. It's already, the time has passed. So, and then your second point about surrounding yourself with the right people. How can people be intentional about that? Is it just paid masterminds? Is it like meetups or like how can they find that network to surround themselves with?
Yeah.
I know me personally, I think that people tend to gravitate towards you when you're ready.
Right.
When you've put yourself in that state that you're ready to attract those people, they'll come to you.
Agreed.
But how can we be more intentional about that?
Yeah, we all start somewhere, right? I started my first networking event on meetup.com. I don't even know if that site's still around.
Mhm.
But
I've been to meetups.
Oh, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah, I used to go to them.
Yep.
I remember being the youngest person there by like 40 years at one of them I went to.
Wow.
It was like a local meetup in my town. But, you start somewhere. My first networking event I hosted had 30 people.
Okay.
Now my last one had 1,000 people and Damon John spoke.
Wow.
So that was
And that's just a networking event. That's not like a event.
And they're always free. I believe networking should be free as much as possible. Obviously, with masterminds, has a different model. It's more exclusive, but that's been a passion of mine, connecting people. And, just start somewhere. If you're in a major city, there's always networking events. I would start there, see what value you can provide, see what people are helping you out with, and then just grow from there.
And so if you have your own networking event, how are you promoting that to get people to attend? Just social media or
social media,
Eventbrite?
Cold email, Eventbrite. I run Eventbrite ads. There's a new site called allevents.in, pretty decent site.
All events that I am.
So if you use that one, Eventbrite and Meetup, you should be able to get 100 people at your event. Honestly, it's not that hard.
You said you run ads on Eventbrite?
I do.
How much do you spend on that? per event?
It's super cheap, like $10 a day, and they get hundreds of people from it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, I'm in Vegas, so it's probably easier.
Yeah.
Where are you at?
Seattle.
It's still a big city. It could probably work.
Yeah, because I started doing this networking event, and so far we've just had one, you know, but we're having another one coming up, and I just wanted to try it out, see what happens. Cool venue, Lambo dealership, you know, and we had maybe like 20, 30 people at the last one.
Yeah. Same with mine, man. That's where you start, and it just grows.
Yeah. So we'll see. I'll have to start running some Eventbrite ads.
Yeah. Was it a free one or paid?
Yeah, free.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I did post it on Eventbrite a couple days before, or maybe like a week before, so people could register. And I was surprised because some people came, and I'm like, "How did you find out about the event?" They're like, "Oh, it was on Eventbrite. I was just looking up events," and I'm like, "Oh, I didn't realize."
People use it, man. It's important to collect their emails and numbers, because that's a whole nother part of my digital social LLC that when I sell the company, I already have 20,000 emails now. So
okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Building a leads list. That's very important. Yeah. Okay, cool. So I think those are definitely great takeaways for people. And, you know, timing things and building that network is, I think, the two most important things when going into business, and building the right partnerships, and being strategic about it. Because, at the end of the day, once you start taking action, you kind of course correct along the way. And sometimes people have trouble going over that hurdle of taking that initial action. And I know for me personally, even though I'm involved in so many businesses, I had to train myself to be that way.
Mm.
I had to train myself to take that first step and then figure it out.
Hmm.
It's not like, oh, let me pre-plan everything, because business plans are great until like the first day in business. And then you're like, oh, wait, never mind. This is not how it
Yeah.
works.
I've actually never made a business plan.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, well, I've like drafted them. There was never like a final one that I like submitted to the bank or something, but I had like a general idea of what I was doing. And then
Yeah.
I start and I'm like, oh, actually, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
Let me do this instead.
And they teach you that in college, how important it is.
Yeah. It's cool. So did you go to college?
I did. I didn't make it all the way. I lasted 1 year at Rutgers in Jersey. Couldn't even get in the business school, man. That's how much of a joke it was.
Yeah.
I couldn't pass pre-calc.
Mm.
And in order to get into the business school, you had to pass that class. It's
Yeah.
the second most failed class at Rutgers. And 3 years later, they had me speak to all their business students
Wow,
about
that's awesome.
entrepreneurship.
That's a full circle right there.
I know. I actually really wish I got in. I wanted to see what it was like. But I heard all the stuff is outdated anyways that they
Yeah.
teach. So
Yeah, I mean, I went to business school, and it's definitely like, I don't think I've applied anything. And I've, got the MBA, working on my PhD right now.
damn.
I haven't applied any of it.
You're still working on your PhD?
Yeah, I'm about to write my dissertation right now.
Okay.
So I submitted, you have to take a step before that where you submit your research proposal to the review board that it looks at your research plan and all that stuff. And they're like, oh, okay, we approve this research. And then you do your research and you defend your dissertation. So
Wow.
done all the classes. I just got to get this approved and do the research.
But even though you haven't utilized it, why are you still pursuing it?
So when I was in elementary school, I don't know what hit me, but like one day I decided to figure out what's like the highest level of education you can get to.
Mhm.
And I was probably like in first grade or something. And I asked my teacher, and I was like, hey, like, what's the highest level you can get? And they're like, oh, well, college. I was like, yeah, but like what degree? Because I really didn't know. And so they told me that it was a PhD. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to set a goal for myself that I'm going to get a PhD.
Mm.
So I can be Dr. Austin Zelan.
Wow.
So, unfortunately, I set myself that goal. And I know that now if I like back out of it,
Yeah.
which I could, like, I don't need it. But if I do, I know I'm going to regret it for a long time. And then I'll probably end up going back when I'm like 40 or 50 or something. Like, dang it, why didn't I just do this? So I
Interesting.
figured right now, while I'm still kind of in that rhythm, I never took a break from college or anything. Bachelor's, master's, now PhD. So I'm kind of in the rhythm of like, okay, some days I have to do homework.
Yeah.
I didn't like totally push it out of my life. So it's not that bad, but man, I can't wait to be done. This is the worst decision I ever made.
Wow. You're a man of your word, man. First grade bond right there.
Yeah, I gotta believe in myself.
I love that.
So anyways, man, well, thank you so much for joining us. I was really great talking to you about the different stuff you got going on. It's very creative. I think it's like an alternative business, and I think people will love to hear that perspective. So how can people reach out to you to connect?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, guys. Sean Mike Kelly. DM me. I personally respond to everything still. Takes hours some days, but
Yeah.
I got you, man. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. Thank you guys for hopping on. This is Better Business with Austin Zelan, and we'll see you all on the next episode.